Welcome in, everyone. This is a brand new edition of Catfish on Ice podcast with your host, Chad Minton, coming to you on this Monday evening, just a week away from the Predators dropping the puck on their 25th season in the NHL. It's right upon us. It's awesome. It's a great feeling. We have this newfound energy, this new sense of a clean slate with Andrew Burnett as the head coach, with Barry Trotz as the general manager. We've been waiting. We never know what's going to happen next with this new leadership in play. We've been watching the training camp and the preseason unfold, and the roster is down to 26 players. Going to unpack that, going to give you my thoughts on the players that are still remaining on the roster, training camp roster, with 2 preseason games left against the Carolina Hurricanes coming up on October 5th and October 6th, so later on this week. So you're going to get one last look at a few players who are still trying to get a roster spot on this team when the season opens on October 10th against the Tampa Bay Lightning down in Tampa Bay. And so we are going to look at that, see if anything is still up for grabs when it comes to that. Some players that are still on the team. Also discuss some of the players who are no longer on the training camp roster, and they have essentially been reassigned to the Milwaukee Admirals. Will we see those players again later on in the season? Very likely on a lot of these players. So we will discuss some of those players later in this episode. This is episode 201, presented by DraftKings, promo code THPN. We're part of the Hockey Podcast Network. Find us on all the major podcast platforms, including Spotify and Apple. Hit subscribe, give us a rating, give us a comment. Helps out a ton. Definitely hit subscribe on the YouTube channel if you're watching right now through YouTube. Appreciate all the support from you on that. Not recording live today. This is a solo episode from yours truly, Chad Minton, on this Monday evening, but definitely wanted to get in a very important episode out to you because a lot has happened in the last few days as we're ramping up on the 2023-24 season. Other than the roster getting trimmed down to 26 players, the Predators went waiver wire shopping today and added Samuel Fagemo to the team. We're going to tell you more about this really talented right winger that came from the Los Angeles Kings system and just never could find a place with that team, but still has a ton of talent. A lot of scouts are still really high on Samuel Fagemo. I'm going to tell you more about why this could end up rectifying all the pain and suffering we felt from another waiver player that the Predators lost. And I think you know where I'm getting at with that, but we're going to talk about that a little bit later in episode 201 and what that player and that waiver pickup could end up meaning for this team down the road. Also going to discuss what I want to see personally from the remaining 2 preseason games for the Predators against the Carolina Hurricanes. Now that the roster has been cut down to 26 players, it's getting down to the nitty-gritty. We kind of are starting to realize what's coming down the road. We still have no clue about these line combinations, mind you. So I want to get into that because that's all people can talk about is speculate and put out there what they think the line combinations are going to look like. Barry Trotz has already been pretty clear when he says that we don't want to get caught up in line combinations because it's going to change throughout the season. And just because the regular season opener has X, Y, and Z and such when it comes to line combinations doesn't mean that's what it's going to be long term. It's very much a trial and error, wait and see approach with this team, and that's to be understood. So I'm going to get into that a little bit more, though, what we think is shaping up, what I think might be happening, and that's just take that with a grain of salt. It's just me looking at it from the outside looking in, but we will break that down. Also, injury news, major injury news that affects the Nashville Predators and their season opener, Andrei Vasilevskiy. Really, really tough news for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Andrei Vasilevskiy is definitely going to miss the Preds season opener on October 10th. He just had back surgery. It came a little bit out of nowhere. We knew he was nursing something, but we didn't know exactly what was going on, and then it just dropped this past week, last week, that he has had back surgery, and his recovery timetable is going to be at least 2 months. That might even be optimistic. We really don't know, but they're saying up to 2 months. It's putting the Tampa Bay Lightning in a tricky situation to figure out are they going to stick with their backups. We've seen some of their backups already. We saw Matt Tompkins, one of their backups, and he looked really good in the first preseason game against Tampa Bay. But do they trust them? Tampa Bay hasn't done anything since then that I'm aware of yet when it comes to – it's a tricky situation for that organization because they got to be cap compliant. And if they go out and pick up a player now, it's going to mean tricky situations down the road when Vasilevskiy is available. So a lot for that organization to figure out. But in the meantime, just in the short term, coming up on October 10th, Vasilevskiy for sure will not be in net. So we'll discuss that a little bit more, discuss whether that gives the Predators you have to think it does, obviously, that Vasilevsky's not in net for that season opener. It's unfortunate. You always want to beat a team at their best, and we wish nothing but the best to Vasilevskiy in his recovery. I do think the Tampa Bay Lightning are doing the right thing at being proactive here. You never want to mess with the back injury, and things that go on back there could literally end his career prematurely if you don't play this the right way and do the right thing. So absolutely, the Tampa Bay Lightning organization and the doctors there are doing the right thing. We do wish Vasilevskiy a speedy recovery. He can get back as one of the world's best goaltenders right now in the entire world. He is one of the best. So let's move into this episode here, episode 201 of Catfish on Ice podcast, as we talk about the Preds roster that's been trimmed down to 26 players. And I want to first and foremost discuss some players who are no longer on the training camp roster anymore and how big of a surprise or not as big of a surprise these players are. Let's start with Joakim Kemell, who is the main player who has been getting all the noise in Predators training camp, and rightfully so. He is an offensive wizard. That's what I've said out there. He is just wise beyond his years. The way he plays, he gets it. He understands it. It's all going to be from here on out, just him putting it together and rounding out his game. We hear that term all the time, round out his game, round out the player's game. It takes time. He has 1 year under his belt after being drafted. And I know that there are some supremely talented prospects out there who jump right into the NHL right away. We're watching Connor Bedard right now just dazzle people, but very, very few and far between. So you look at Joakim Kemell, who is kind of that next tier down of a Connor Bedard. But I will say that he is right there on the cusp of being NHL ready. And he doesn't make that round of cuts. He is going to go back down to the Milwaukee Admirals for now. But there was speculation. I myself was even wrote an article about it on PredLines.com saying, is he done enough to earn a roster spot for the Predators? A lot of fans out there that I'm seeing on the airwaves want to see Joakim Kemell get in the Predators lineup right on opening night against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I think the coaching staff for the Predators have done the right thing by putting him down in Milwaukee to start the season. Let him thrive there. Let him be the focal point. Let him kind of know what it feels like to be the guy on the AHL level. He is going to be the main offensive focal point for that team, that Milwaukee Admirals team, while he's down there. Let's see him thrive. Let's see him continue to build that confidence against not just other prospects, but career AHL veteran players as well. One thing we know about the AHL is that it is a really hard-nosed league when it comes to defense, and you run against a lot of rugged players who have been in the AHL for a long time. And so sometimes it's really hard for these offensively prolific players like Kemell to thrive. We've seen Egor Afanasyev have his struggles. About to talk about him in a second. He's had his struggles scoring on the AHL level. So let's see what Joakim Kemell can do in his second year with the Milwaukee Admirals. I think it's a very fair approach. As much as I would love to see him play on opening night, just being a very selfish fan with that perspective, I would love to see Joakim Kemell be in the Predators roster on opening night. But where would you put him? Let's be honest here for a second. Where would you put him in the Predators starting lineup? Whose spot is he going to take? And the biggest pushback, and I think a lot of people will agree when you really sit back and take the emotion out of it, you do not want to see Kemell buried on the fourth line, getting 10 to 12 minutes a game. You don't want to see that. You don't want to see his confidence shattered, which is what Barry Trotz has talked about in past interviews leading up to this season. You don't want to see him crushed. You don't want to see him thrown out there and take a really bad hit. God forbid, take a really bad injury that stunts his development. You don't want to see him get out there and play 5 or 6, 7 games and get a little bit exposed, take some bad hits, not register any points, not have a hard time finding his game, and then you send him back down to Milwaukee. What does that really get you? You get way more value out of Joakim Kemell starting the season with the Milwaukee Admirals, where he can play top line minutes and really be a prime player for that Admiral squad. And then you let the season unfold for the Predators on that level, and then let things shake out the way they're going to shake out. So I've got the much more conservative approach when it comes to Joakim Kemell. So no problem with him not making the Predators roster out of training camp. As much fun as it would be and being selfish and all that, I still am totally okay with that. Let's move on down the list to Egor Afanasyev, a player who is much further along in their development cycle and trying to make the Predators roster. We saw last year when the Predators were featured in the NHL Network Behind the Glass series, and how tough it was for Egor Afanasyev to get the news from, at the time, David Poile and John Hines on that series. And he came into the office and they were like, look, you're close, you're there. It's going to happen sooner rather than later. It's just not right now. And we thought, okay, well, next year's definitely going to be his year then. And then we saw Egor Afanasyev get the call up and make his NHL debut, played in 17 games, only managed 1 goal. But me personally, I've been very vocal when I said, let's not focus on goals and points so much when it comes to Afanasyev. His first taste of NHL action, he still showed a lot of good things outside of just the score sheet. He registered hits. He registered block shots. He got there and skated. He registered shots on goal, around a shot per game, over a shot per game. So he was aggressive. He found ways to shoot. He just didn't finish, but he got a goal. And I was wondering, is he the one guy who's going to really take off in training camp, in preseason action, and earn himself a roster spot? Very different from Kemell. Afanasyev is a different situation for me if he could have earned his way onto the fourth line for the Predators, because he is much further along in his development. 2019 draft pick. Kemmell's a 2022 draft pick. Very different, but similar types of players. Both have great shots. Both are, well, I will say Afanasyev is a much bigger player and offers a different skill set in that regard. But you're thinking Afanasyev was maybe ready to make that jump and get a spot right out of training camp. So that's the big one that stood out that didn't make this final 26 players for the Predators is Egor Afanasyev. Is time starting to run out on Afanasyev when it comes to becoming a consistent NHL player? I wouldn't go that far. I would not go that far just yet. But I will say that it is a little mildly concerning that he wasn't a little bit more of a factor in training camp and in the preseason games. I will say that. Let's see what he does now back with the Admirals again. I would be very surprised that if he doesn't get called up at some point once again for the Predators through whatever means that might happen. It could be multiple different ways, as we know. But yes, Egor Afanasyev will have to keep an eye on him. Let's move on down the list on some players who did not make the Predators' last cut of roster trimming here, and down to 26 players now. And I'm a little surprised of Spencer Stastny not being part of the 26 players to make it through these final 2 preseason games for the Predators. Because Spencer Stastny kind of feels like he's the next one up to graduate to full-time NHL duty. Feels that way. He played really well in his NHL debut stint of action this past year. Saw a lot of players who got their first NHL action, but Spencer Stastny looked really good. And I thought he's looked pretty good in this preseason. I thought for sure that he was going to stick around. But again, it looks like this front office is thinking about other reasons to send these players back to Milwaukee, and think of the long-term approach here. When you think about the Predators' defensive core, you're thinking about the fact that once you went out and got Luke Schenn, you had your top 4 set in stone already with Roman Josi, Ryan McDonagh, Tyson Barrie, and Luke Schenn. So it leaves 2 spots on your bottom pairing, and then you carry an extra defenseman, most likely, maybe 2, to the regular season. But you can only start 2 of those on your bottom pairing, and then you carry an extra one. That's probably how it works out. So you're thinking about it now, and it makes sense, kind of, that Spencer Stastny is going to go back to the Milwaukee Admirals. Jordan Gross, who's played minutes in the NHL for the Predators, is going back to Milwaukee for now. Jake Livingstone also made his NHL debut. A great, outstanding underdog story. One of the great underrated stories of the Predators season this past year. Jake Livingstone, he's going to start off in Milwaukee as well. Doesn't make the final 26 players from training camp. But here's your interesting one. Marc Del Gaizo has not made his NHL debut yet. He has spent 2 full seasons with the Milwaukee Admirals. So, is he the next player up? Can he do enough in these final 2 preseason games? Because it seems like that's what the Predators want to see here. They want to see 2 more games of Marc Del Gaizo. Maybe just 1, but maybe 2. But that is certainly an interesting one from Marc Del Gaizo, who is 23 years old, 5'11", was drafted by the Predators in 2019, 4th-round pick, 109th overall. So, these are draft picks back in 2019 that you kind of forget about, but that's the same draft class as Egor Afanasyev. So, Marc Del Gaizo is making a name for himself. He spent a lot of time with the Milwaukee Admirals, 2 full seasons, had a pretty strong playoff performance for the Admirals this past year, that deep playoff run that the Admirals made. You saw Marc Del Gaizo put up 12 points in 16 playoff games for the Admirals, 50 points total in the last 2 regular seasons with the Milwaukee Admirals. Is he the next one up to get a shot? It appears that way. We'll see. Doesn't mean he's going to make the Predators roster, but he's still around. So he's going to be a player you're really going to want to watch in the preseason action against the Carolina Hurricanes. He's probably going to be one of the main spotlight players. Let's see if he makes a really big name for himself and really shows out against the Hurricanes in this final preseason action for the Predators. So a great player to watch. Is Del Gaizo going to push Jeremy Lauzon or Alexander Carrier on opening night to start? Might seem like a long shot, but let's just keep an eye on it. And I don't bring up Dante Fabro when it comes to that scenario because Del Gaizo is a left defenseman and Fabro is a right defenseman. Whereas Jeremy Lauzon and Alexander Carrier are also both left defensemen. Jeremy Lauzon can play both sides, but I feel like if there's any player that's safe from Del Gaizo, it's probably Fagemo. I think that they trust Fagemo to at least start the season on the bottom pairing. They like enough of what he's done. He's been around long enough to trust him to at least start the season on the bottom pairing. You can feel good about Dante Fagemo in your bottom pairing at the very least. And maybe you give a shot to Del Gaizo. I don't know. It's a big risk turning away from what you know with Alexander Carrier and Jeremy Lauzon, but it's definitely the biggest standout from this roster cutting so far is Marc Del Gaizo. Hands down for me, stands out the most. Let's look at the veterans that are still on the training camp roster. Mark Jankowski, Cole Smith, Kiefer Sherwood, Michael McCarron. Now, been getting a lot from social media talking about this today. A lot of really well-educated and smart Predators fans out there who said, well, they're not waiver exempt. So you put a player like Jankowski, Smith, Sherwood, definitely Sherwood, or Michael McCarron on the waiver wire, they're probably going to get taken. Not all. I mean, I think Jankowski would have a chance to clear. I think McCarron maybe would clear, but that would be a big risk. Sherwood would be claimed. I think Cole, as much flack as Cole Smith gets, I think he would be claimed by somebody. So I get why they're being kept for now. But it does ruffle the feathers for some Predators fans because they definitely don't see Cole Smith, Michael McCarron, or Mark Jankowski as the long-term future of what this franchise is trying to do. Sherwood is totally a player that has earned the respect from the Predators, the majority of the Predators fan base. He earned it. He did it last year. That dude flew around the ice all year, scored the first goal of the Predator season, scored the last goal of the Predator season. How cool is that? He earned it. He played hard minutes, played up and down the lineup, went through that fun stretch of hockey down the end of the season where the Predators were somehow trying to miraculously make the playoffs despite everything they had been through the trade deadline, through injuries to Philip Forsberg, Roman Josi, just to name two major players. Matt Duchene ended up being out of the lineup towards the end. I mean, you lose Matthias Ekholm, you lose Tanner Jeannot, you lose Mikael Granlund in trades. All these things happen. You call up all these players. You're basically running an AHL squad towards the end. And Kiefer Sherwood was a huge, huge player in all of that. So I think Kiefer Sherwood is a player that absolutely is going to start on opening night. He's earned it. We'll see. Fourth line, most likely. McCarron, Jankowski, Cole Smith. I don't know. There's not room for everybody. So we will see how it all shakes out. Out of those four, I could see Jankowski being put on waivers. I could. There's always the possibility of a trade coming out of nowhere. But out of those four, Sherwood is your front runner for me out of those four. I wouldn't like losing McCarron either necessarily because I like McCarron's big body. I like the way he plays as a fourth line, hard-nosed player. He's a big body. He can crowd the net. He can find ways to score goals. He plays a little bit of that enforcer style. Wouldn't be crazy about losing McCarron through waivers, but sometimes you got to lose players you don't want to lose on waivers. I don't think McCarron would clear waivers. Sherwood definitely wouldn't, and I think you're taking Sherwood to your roster to open the regular season for sure. Jankowski and even Cole Smith, I'm not sure. We'll see how it all shakes out. It's going to be very, very intriguing to watch. But that's what we got from that roster from the Predators training camp, down to 26 players. They got to get down to 23 players eventually. So you got three more players that are going to either be put on waivers, something's going to happen. A trade could be in the works. We don't know. A lot of moving parts here. Very, very fun to watch. Again, as I put on the bottom of the screen, Marc Del Gaizo is the big focal point for me. from all of this? Should Jeremy Lauzon, Dante Fabro, Alexander Carrier be worried? That's what I'm asking there at the bottom of the screen if you're watching on our YouTube channel. Out of those players, I think Jeremy Lauzon's spot is most up for grabs if Marc Del Gaizo gets a spot. But that's just me. The reason why I say that is Jeremy Lauzon is very much a one-way player, more so than Fabro and Carrier is to me. Lauzon takes a lot of bad penalties. He is a big body. He does give you some value in that regard. But if you can find something special in Del Gaizo that you didn't know you had, and if he can prove something and give you something special, then you look for that. And that might be what Andrew Burnett and his coaching staff is searching for right now as they're going into their first year, taking over this fresh, new look Pred squad. So Marc Del Gaizo, mark it down. No pun intended. But yeah, cool stuff. Let's move along here with episode 201 of Catfish on Ice with your host, Chad Minton. Thank you for joining me on this solo episode. Not live today, but this will be live on our YouTube channel. Later on, we'll upload it. If you want to watch the episode through the video with yours truly, just me, not live, no outtakes or anything like that. We'll do another live episode soon with my co-host, Rich Howe, as we get ready for the season opener against the Tampa Bay Lightning, which is going to be a week from tomorrow. I'm coming to you on a Monday evening. Week from tomorrow. If you just downloaded the podcast today and it's a Tuesday, well, we're a week away from Predators hockey opening on the national TV stage down in Tampa Bay. How much fun is that going to be? I cannot wait. Let's move along here and tell you about DraftKings with our current NFL offer. Let me give you my quick hot take on the NFL. A lot of you are also crossover fans and you're big Titans fans. Well, those damn Tennessee Titans can never figure those players out, much like the Predators. It's so crazy how we have to deal with two helter-skelter teams in the same city. The Titans, every time you think that they're just done, they just throw you a little nugget. And that's what they did yesterday. They beat the Cincinnati Bengals. They dominate them. Just to let you know, hey, we're not dead yet. It's early in the season, just like the Predators do to us all the time. They dangle that little carrot in front of our faces. Titans are doing the same thing right now, but it was a really, really fun day of NFL action. Lots of great games yesterday. And if you haven't gotten our NFL DraftKings offer yet, and you're new to the podcast, or maybe you've been listening for a while but still haven't taken advantage of our DraftKings offer, let me tell you about it again. With a new week of NFL action coming at you, we're back with another week of football, and DraftKings Sportsbook is keeping us in on the NFL action with great offers every single game day. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Throw 5 down on any of this week's epic matchups to walk away an instant winner. And DraftKings isn't stopping with all customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game day this September. Football's more fun when you're in on the action. So download the app now and sign up with code THPN. Now customers can bet just $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL with code THPN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY. That's 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, licensed partner, Golden Nugget, Lake Charles, Louisiana. 21 up, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. See sportsbook.com/DraftKings.com/football terms for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance, and eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Let's move along here with the waiver shopping that the Predators have done today. Samuel Fagemo, who comes out of the Los Angeles Kings system. They put him on waivers, and it's already pretty clear that some LA Kings fans are not thrilled about losing this young prospect who has played a few games for the Kings, but not too many. Mostly played with their AHL affiliate team, the Ontario Reign. He is a 2019 second-round pick, number 50 overall. That same draft that Egor Afanasyev was in and Marc Gaizo was in. He is from Sweden, left wing, right wing, 6 foot, 200 pounds. The scouts are overwhelmingly still very high on Fagemo, who just couldn't find a spot simply on a LA Kings NHL roster that is primed to win a Stanley Cup very, very soon. Way closer to a Stanley Cup than the Nashville Predators are right now. There is no arguing that. So sometimes it comes down to a numbers game, and you got to get on the waiver wire and find players that another team cannot keep anymore, but can be a great situation for you. I think that's what Barry Trotz is obviously looking for with Samuel Fagemo. Let's read some of his original scouting reports all the way back in 2019, because I think they're still very, very valid, obviously, because he still has not gotten into the NHL yet. From McKean's Hockey in 2019, they said of Fagemo, he is a creative player with good hands, but his offensive game depends on his drive to shoot the puck. From hockeyprospect.com, his shot is great, and he can score with his hard, accurate slap shot or his quick released wrist shot. From Future Considerations website in 2019, they say, quote, Fagemo displays decent puck skills with stick handling that allows him to beat defenders one-on-one and create space for himself. So there are some original draft scouts reports from 2019 leading up to that draft of Samuel Fagemo. I've watched, there's some really good highlight reels of Fagemo on YouTube right now. I shared it on my Twitter X profile at Chad_Minton. I shared that whole highlight reel for you if you want to go watch it. But it's a full highlight reel from 21-22 season when he played for his AHL squad. And a lot of what I see in his highlight film is he is a gifted player at moving without the puck. And all he needs is good line mates that's going to find him in those high danger areas. He knows how to find the puck. He knows how to find loose puck opportunities. He has a great shot if you set him up. So let's think about the power play possibilities there. I think we're getting ahead of ourselves to think that he's going to be just thrown into a power play opportunity for the Predators right away, but definitely a long-term, interesting pickup on the waiver wire on this Monday for the Predators. It makes you wonder again about those players I was talking about earlier, those veterans that are still on the 26-player training camp roster, Marc Jankowski, Kiefer Sherwood, Cole Smith, Michael McCarron. You think about adding a Samuel Fagemo, who has a very different skill set than pretty much all of those players, especially Cole Smith and Michael McCarron, who are much bigger players who just look to out-physical people, whereas Fagemo looks very much more like a fine-tuned offensive playmaker that just needs to build his game a little bit more. You're hoping as a Predators fan that this is a reverse effect of what happened to the Predators when they put, inexplicably, Eeli Tolvanen on the waiver wire and lost him to the Seattle Kraken. Won't get any more into that because we've talked about it plenty on this podcast, and I don't want to talk about it anymore. But I will say, reverse effect, let's see if it works in the Predators' favor this time, because it is sometimes about change in scenery. And let's really hope that Samuel Fagemo is a player that just needed to find a change of scenery. I like it. I love the pick or the waiver pickup. I really do. Could he be in the lineup to start the Predators season in Tampa? That could be difficult because we've already done our lineup projections, and if he gets in maybe on the fourth line, that would be very interesting. Could he be on a bottom line with Sissons as the center and maybe Kiefer Sherwood out there? You still got Dennis Garyanov. You got to figure out where you're going to put him. You got Yakov Trenin out there, who's probably a bottom six player. And then you got to sort out your centers as well. But as far as wingers, could he find a spot? And that would mean Cole Smith is out. That would mean that Michael McCarron's out. That would mean that Mark Jankowski's out. We've already seen that Egor Afanasyev is not going to make the initial roster out of training camp, so we can mark him out as a possible left winger. So really, it could come down to, yes, Fagemo could be on a fourth line possibly, or even a third line with a Yakov Trenin on one wing, or on a fourth line with Kiefer Sherwood on one wing. That could happen. We will have to wait and see. Obviously, they went up and picked him up for a reason, so we'll see what happens. But very interesting pickup there. Let's move into these final two preseason games and the outlook of that. They'll be playing the Carolina Hurricanes for a pair of matchups on October 5th and October 6th, leading up to the October 10th regular season opener. What are we looking for? What am I looking for in these final two preseason games? So the Predators just are coming off. They got a long, little decent break here. They got a day off from practice on this Monday today. But the Predators are coming off of their best preseason showing of the 4-game slate so far. I will say that. I think everyone can agree on that. They went toe-to-toe with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and a lot of their top players did play in this rematch of pair of preseason games against the Lightning. Now let's go back a little bit further. That first preseason game at home at Bridgestone Arena wasn't so great for the Predators. They went to overtime and lost in overtime to a Tampa Bay Lightning C squad, basically. Like, a lot of their prospects were out there. They didn't play any of their top players. You go back to this past preseason matchup with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and the Lightning did play a lot of their top players. We saw Nikita Kucherov out there. We saw Stamkos out there. We saw a lot of their top players were out there. We saw Kucherov had a goal in this game. Stamkos had an assist. Hedman played in this game as well. Sergachev played in this game. Of course, we did not see Andrei Vasilevskiy. Obviously, he's going to miss up to 2 months. Hit it on the top of the episode. Back surgery for Andrei Vasilevskiy, a long recovery timeline. The Tampa Bay Lightning are just keeping their fingers crossed that he's back and ready to go for the second half of this season. That's the best they can hope for at this point. But looking back at this past preseason game, Predators did lose 5-4, so they're still winless in the preseason. But I think we all can agree that it's not about the wins and the losses in the preseason. Are you showing improvement? Are you getting better? I do think the Predators are showing improvement, and they're getting better, and they're starting to get a grasp of this new system that they're learning under Andrew Brunette. Not only learning a new system, but they're having a lot of players having to get to know each other. So there's a lot of moving parts, and there's not a lot of time to learn all this stuff. So with that understood, I do think that the Predators looked really good in this 5-4 loss. Tommy Novak scores a pair of goals. Philip Tomasino gets a goal in this game, and Joakim Kemell gets a goal. He actually opened the scoring against the Lightning in this game to put the Predators up 1-0. Got a really, really good feed from Yakov Trenin on this goal. Found a soft spot in the zone and finished it off. It was a really, really pretty goal. And then Tomasino gets a goal on a Ryan O'Reilly assist. Novak scores on an assist from Luke Evangelista and Roman Josi. And Novak made it 5-4 Tampa, but it was in the last minute of regulation, so not enough time to get the tie score and get it to overtime. But the fact that the team scored 4 goals, very, very promising. Josi had a pair of assists. Kemell had a goal and an assist, and Novak had 2 goals in this game. I will say, just looking back at this game, Goaltending-wise for the Predators, Askarov makes 8 saves on 11 shots, so a pretty rough night at the office for Askarov. That's his third preseason game of the slate this year. He started the first game in the split squad against the Panthers and made all 9 saves. Played pretty good in the first game against the Tampa Bay Lightning, but did surrender the overtime goal to the Tampa Bay Lightning in that game. But overall, was still a pretty solid performance from him in that game. And then this game is a little bit of a tough one for him. So he only makes 8 saves on 11 shots faced. Lankinen makes 14 saves on 16 shots as the starter. So kind of a rough outing for him as well. But other than that, you can't worry too much about the goaltending because we know it's UC Saros' net. But other than that, I think it was a pretty solid showing. Definitely their best performance of the year in the preseason. So that is something to feel very good about. Total shots on goal. The Predators put up 47 shots on goal. That is what you love to see. And you love that it's coming to fruition as the preseason progresses. Preseason game number 4 against the Tampa Bay Lightning and a lot of their A squad finally. They managed 47 shots on goal, including 25 in the third period. That is something to build on. Good stuff there. So what am I looking for in these last 2 preseason games? Keep it up. Keep it up. Let's not regress. This roster is starting to take shape, so it's going to look a lot more like what the product is that we can expect on October 10th. It's getting closer. We're going to get a lot more clues on line combinations that Andrew Burnett's thinking about, because right now it is a complete mystery with what Andrew Brunette is going to do with his line combinations. It's a complete mystery. The only thing we know for sure is UC Saros is going to be your starter, and we can feel pretty confident that Luke Schenn and Roman Josi are going to be your top pairing defensemen. We can feel pretty confident that Philip Forsberg and Ryan O'Reilly is going to be on your top line. Other than that, good luck figuring out who's going to be where. So maybe we'll get some more clues of that against the Hurricanes. That's something we definitely have to look at. Get a clear sense of your line combinations, because lines 1 through 4, we still don't really know for sure. That's something we're going to be looking for. We're going to be looking for the Predators to definitely continue this momentum that they're starting to build. And we're also, as I brought up earlier, Marc Del Gaizo, what's he going to do? Is he going to just have a good game or two, at least one game, and do something that really propels him to get a starting spot? We're going to have to keep an eye on that. Let's wrap up this episode 201 of Catfish on Ice as we are gearing up for the puck drop of the 2023-24 season with this Andre Vasilevskiy news, as I've already touched on it. First reported by Kevin Weeks, and the prognosis, it was a huge breaking news, dropped. It was big. Everyone was speculating. We knew that Vasilevskiy was dealing with a nagging injury. The news comes out that they had tried a few things to fix it without surgery. It didn't work out. It's a total proactive move by the Tampa Bay Lightning organization. You're not going to put at risk long-term your franchise goaltender. You shouldn't put anyone at risk, because you got to think about, these are humans here. This is post-hockey. So not even hockey related, just you want to make sure that anything back related you take care of, and you don't let this injury get even worse. So it's a smart move, but it makes things very, very complicated for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Looking at the season opener now, and you look at who the Lightning have, they have not picked up anyone yet. And so right now it appears like they're going forward with their backups. And we've already seen one of their backups in 2 preseason games. That is Matt Tompkins, who has never played in an NHL game. 29 years old, been around for a while. He's a former 2012 draft pick, picked 199th overall in the 7th round by the Chicago Blackhawks. And he has been around for a while. He has been playing in the AHL since 2017-18, had college experience at Ohio State University, but since then has mainly been in the AHL. His most recent action was actually in the SHL. So just hasn't really ever been able to make the jump into the NHL. He's been a career minor league player. So how comfortable do you feel with that? Probably not too comfortable. Although I will say Tompkins looked really good in that first preseason game against the Predators. So I don't want to take anything away from him. But it is a pretty risky proposition to move forward. You've also got Jonas Johansson as a possible backup. He's actually got NHL experience, 35 games of NHL experience, including 11 wins, a 3.32 goals against average, .887 save percentage in his NHL career. Played in 3 games last year and looked good in very limited action. 3 games, he got 2 wins for the Lightning, a 2.10 goals against average and a .932 save percentage. So do you think the Lightning are willing to just live off their top-end talent of Kucherov and Braden Point and Stamkos and just try to override maybe some shaky goaltending through the first half of the season and then just really hope that they're still in the playoff race when Vasilevskiy comes storming back? Seems like as of now, that's what they're looking for. There were rumors that they were maybe going to claim Spencer Knight. Maybe they're going to go out and get Martin Jones. But the veteran goalie market is really, really thin right now. So that kind of speaks to maybe why the Predators have not, or not the Predators, the Lightning have not gone out and gotten anybody. So looking at this October 10th matchup, if the Predators go up against Johansson or Tompkins, and they can get this offense clicking a little bit more in these last 2 preseason games against the Hurricanes, then you suddenly feel drastically better about the chances of the Predators getting a huge season opening win on the road at Tampa. The Tampa Bay Lightning have been a really tough team for the Predators to deal with in recent years. They played the Lightning in the Stadium Series game, the first ever outdoor game for the Predators not too long ago. That game tilted in the Lightning's favor. Last season, the 2 teams faced off against each other, and the Lightning just looked really good against them. So this is a team that the Predators have not been able to fare well against recently, and you're hoping that, it's tough injury news, and we wish the best for Vasilevskiy, of course, but this is a really good opportunity for the Predators to take advantage of. I'll tell you right now, if Vasilevskiy's in net, it doesn't matter how much the Predators' offense might be clicking at that point. We all know that Andrei Vasilevskiy is the world-class goaltender that can completely neutralize an offense that is humming, especially a new offense with a lot of young pieces. Now that he's out of net and you have an untested or an inexperienced goalie. Now, I've already been told by a lot of people on social media that the Predators are so great at making backup goalies look like Vezina Trophy goaltenders. And I get that, but let's break that curse. Let's see what happens. There's still some time here to where the Lightning might make a decision and do something else, but it appears they're going to go with one of these backups against the Predators on October 10th. So we will wait and see. Can't wait to be at that game. I'll be there. I'll try to take some good pictures, some good videos, because as you know, all the listeners know, I do live down here in St. Petersburg, Florida, right across the bay from Tampa Bay. So I will be at that game. Cannot wait to be there. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on this episode 201 of Catfish on Ice, as we are on the doorstep of the 2023-24 season. The Predators, their 25th season in the NHL. So cool. And we've got this newfound energy around this team, and they seem to be building on something through this preseason, even though they haven't won a game yet. They still seem to be building on something. Let's see if they can build off the momentum from this past game against the Lightning and do some more damage against the Hurricanes as they trim down this roster. And let's see if there's some more tricks up this team's sleeve in terms of a trade or a different roster move. But other than that, we will see you next time as we get ready, and we will be right there on the doorstep of Predators Lightning to open 2023-24 on national TV. Until then, everyone take care. Have an awesome week. Thank you for following us on Twitter. Thank you for following us through all the social media apps. Thank you for subscribing on YouTube. Leave some comments below. Until then, take care, everybody. Thanks for listening.